Another Dooley Noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Okay, and welcome into another Dooley Noted podcast, as always, presented by the great folks at Titan MRI, coming to you from the Meldon Law Gator studios here at Steve Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. No coach again today. He's playing in a golf tournament. In fact, Freddie was telling me he played yesterday with Mullen and Meyer. So I said, yeah, two of those three guys are really successful. Only one of them got fired. But so we have Blake Toppmeyer, who was going to be on Friday. He had something he had to deal with. Blake Toppmeyer does SEC football for USA Today. So we have a lot of things to talk about with him. Still working on a Friday guest. And just a programming note, next Monday, Coach Spurrier should be back. We plan on him being here. And then the following Friday is the Friday before the Bob Dooley Invitational. I ain't working that day. I mean, I'm working, just not here. Not on anything else I'm doing. No radio, nothing. We got a lot of stuff we have to handle at the last minute. So what we're gonna do is actually record another show that'll be more of a generic show. Possibly without a guest. I don't know. We may have a guest, we may not. I haven't decided on that. Just to kind of give you that fix for Friday, because I know a lot of you are fans of the podcast, and that's why we're so successful and we've done so well, and we appreciate you so much. In fact, Stitch Turner, who won the last Leonardo's contest, I've gotten so bogged down with this golf tournament, I keep forgetting to mail it to him, but I will do that today when I get home. I promise you, Stitch. He wanted to meet me, but I could meet him, but it has to be a certain time, like 8 seconds before 2 o'clock. There's just so much going on. It is the way it is. All right, let us get to today our Meldon Law starting lineup. So we love the folks at Meldon Law, big sponsors and sponsors of the golf tournament as well, sponsors of our radio show. I don't think there's anything they don't sponsor. And they are the official home of the Florida Gators, official law firm of the Florida Gators. Let's start with baseball, number one on the Meldon Law starting lineup. Obviously, they needed a sweep after getting swept last week by South Carolina. Missouri's not great, but they're good enough to beat them, and we saw them almost beat them. But they needed that sweep, and that was huge for Florida to get that and get back in it. Now they're only 2 games out of first in both the SEC East and in the whole SEC. They're 2 games out of first. I mean, there's a lot of teams up there. And they're pretty much clinched a first round bye. They've got to win a lot of games here down the stretch. Again, you're down to the last 3 weekends of the regular season, which is unbelievable. And 2 of theirs are going to be on the road, including this week. So, they're locked in, I think, as a national seed unless they totally collapse, which is important. And I think that they need to just keep winning. Just keep winning series. Other than that South Carolina series, they just keep going and winning series, and you got to give them a lot of credit. The thing with Caglione is just amazing. Another homer yesterday, 25 now. The record is 26, and 26 – when Laporta hit it, I go, man, it may be a long time before anybody breaks that record. And then it got broken last year, or tied last year by Langford. And Cags is going to blow by it, you would think. You never know. Baseball's a weird sport. All of a sudden you go, because they only have 10 games left in the regular season. The good thing, and Laporta broke the record with a College World Series Finals appearance in there. So he got extra games. I'm not taking anything away from Laporta. The ball he hit in Vanderbilt in Nashville that landed on Kevin Stallings' roof was one of the greatest homers I've ever witnessed in my life. But we'll see where this all ends up, and it's just going to be interesting. We'll get to what they've got going on Tuesday as well when we get to the Ben Igodell Realty games of the week. But they needed a sweep, and they got it. And I always, I joke with Jeff because he tries to aggravate me. On Fridays, he'll say, I think Florida will sweep this series, or they need to sweep. And I go, no, concentrate on game one. That's all you need. The first pitch and the first at bat of game one, that's all you need to be thinking. Don't be thinking sweep. Like, obviously, he can think sweep, and I can think sweep. It doesn't matter. The players don't need to. But they got one, and that's good. Very important for them. Number 2 on the Meldon Law starting lineup, I looked this up because there was a point during the game Sunday. I was watching it on TV because I was working on a bunch of other stuff. And I was going to go play golf with my daughter a little bit later in the day, and we did. We had a great time. But on Sunday, where somebody hit somebody, and I can't remember who it was, Florida pitcher hit somebody, and I screamed at the TV, quit hitting people. It's just, I mean, it's not even, like, a lot of times I say that a walk is, you didn't even make them work for it, but you work a walk a little bit. You've got to lay off pitches. You may have to foul some off. Getting hit, you're not working at all. You're just standing there. The ball hits you. You're on first base. It can lead to, but there are a lot of them. So, and Florida's had a lot of them. So I decided to look up the stats, okay? And this is in all games involving SEC teams. So I think there's 613 of those games that they've played so far this year, all 14 SEC teams. There have been 1,468 hit batters in those games. Now, a lot of it is SEC teams getting hit, too. They've actually been hit more than the opponent. But when you think about it, every game in every SEC game, the average is almost 2.5 hit batters. Why is this? Well, everybody struggles with control at this level. That's part of it. And part of it is I'm going to show him I own the plate. I'm going to brush him off. You're not good enough. And these guys aren't good enough to brush people off. They don't have the control at this age, this point in their careers. And I think that's why you see so many. I don't know if this is like a lot or if it's surprisingly small number. 1,468 should be a lot. I'm not going to bother looking up anything else. Okay, that was all the effort I wanted to put into this project. All right, number 3 on our Meldon Law starting lineup. I did want to talk a little draft stuff. It's still Georgia and Alabama versus the world. They had the most draft picks with 10 each, which for Georgia was down. Georgia had 15 last year, but 25 draft picks in 2 years. Think about that's what great recruiting does. And certainly Alabama's been through that run, like kind of a run. The problem is last year when they had 15 guys drafted, there were a lot of people, and shut up, Kirby. Nobody was disrespecting you, but there were people who were saying, man, Georgia may take a little step back. Nobody was saying 7-5. You made that up, okay? That was all made up. Nobody predicted them to go 7-5. But they lost 15 guys and won the national title. This year, they lost 10. And they played nobody during the regular season, and I include Florida in that. As I've said a million times, the reason Georgia's schedule is not hard is they don't have to play Georgia. That makes it easier right there. So they're going to be back, and we're going to have to deal with it. We'll talk to Blake a little bit about that right now, or in a little bit. But, yeah, it just keeps coming at you, and it doesn't get any better. I was on a radio show this morning, actually. Been on several lately. Everybody's kind of doing their let's go through the league and what we're looking at now that spring football's over. And that's probably what we're going to do for next Friday's show that we're going to record earlier, something along those lines. But I was asked about that. I was asked about Florida's recruiting and how they played the game on Thursday, the spring game and everything for recruiting purposes. And I said, yeah, it's getting better. There's no question Florida is recruiting better than it did under Dan Mullen. There's no doubt. That's not a high bar, though. Can they get to the urban level of recruiting? I don't know. Georgia's not going to stop recruiting. Alabama's not going to stop recruiting. That's the hard part. When Meyer was killing it on the recruiting trail, he did have to worry about Saban, but not anybody at Georgia, really. I mean, he pretty much could go get anybody around the country that he wanted to get. So I don't know that Florida can get back to that level, but whether they can get to get the bar raised a little bit, we'll have to wait and see. All right, so that was our draft talk for the day. Oh, by the way, 6 Florida players ended up getting drafted. All of them have different ways of getting to the draft. I mean, I'm talking about their stories. It's pretty interesting when you think about it. What Anthony Richardson did, what Ventrell Miller did, what Jervon Dexter did. You know, they all came in with different levels of anticipation and performed at different levels as well. And they all ended up getting drafted. And a bunch of guys who declared for the draft and did not get drafted signed free agent deals, which is all you're saying is basically, here's $10,000, come to camp, be a tackling dummy. Unless there are guys who come in as undrafted free agents and end up making teams. You know, a guy that, to me, I would think has a chance is Trey Dean. And I know you guys are saying, I can't stand Trey Dean. He doesn't make good plays. He does this. He makes a tackle 15 yards down the field and starts cheering. No, I get that. But you got to have a guy who can play special teams at a high level. And I think he could do that. So he could stick around a roster for a couple, 3 years as a mainly playing special teams. And if you got to put him in as a backup nickel, that's fine. But guys stay in the league. In fact, I think Doring and I have talked about this. Why he didn't stay in the league longer is he was gangly, tall, not ideal for special teams, so he couldn't play special teams. They didn't want to put him out there. All right, number 4 on the Meldon Law starting lineup. We keep talking about who's going to be the Florida quarterback next year. And, of course, Billy Napier said that they're going to get somebody from the portal, and guys are coming and going from the portal. The portal's now closed. You can't get in it right now. That's the window was shut down yesterday, I believe, was the end of the window. And there are several guys in it, and we'll see what Florida ends up with. Obviously, the guy that I think everybody wanted was the kid from Notre Dame who ended up going to Alabama. Again, they didn't stop recruiting. But here are 3 names, and I know that when I record this and we do this, 2 hours later they could announce that this guy's coming to school, whatever. But I'm just going to throw these names at you. Casey Thompson at Nebraska, Peyton Thorne at Michigan State, who started, I think, 3 years or 2 years for them. Ben Bryant at Cincinnati. These are guys in the portal. Seem like the best possibilities for them to get. They're going to try to get one of them. I don't know. They may be going for something else different. I don't know. I don't know where they're going with this. But I'm not sure that whoever they get is going to be the starting quarterback next year because they're going to bring him in, have to teach him everything new. So we'll see what happens. And finally, number 5 on our Meldon Law starting lineup. How about my Warriors? Yeah, they're my Warriors. I know. We talked about it last week. I love the Warriors. Steph Curry goes for 50. First player ever in a Game 7 to go for 50 points. They double teamed him. They couldn't stop him. That was really fun to watch. And the other thing I wanted to mention is Miami. The Miami Heat. I think Miami is the new Tampa because it almost got crazy where Tampa's winning the Super Bowl. They're winning the Stanley Cup. Their baseball team was in the World Series. They were going nuts, and it's kind of fallen off in all those areas. And now Miami, not only did they win, but somebody else won. So we'll talk about it in a little bit. But yeah, they start off 1-0. Now they got a break catching the Knicks instead of. But you've already beaten the 1 seed, so I mean, you don't care who you play at this point. Be interesting to see where this goes. All right. One thing we need to do is our Campus USA Play of the Weekend. We'll show that to you. And it was there were a lot of things that happened over the weekend in baseball and softball, but this is the one that stood out to me, especially because Wyatt Langford he kind of struggled a little bit to kind of get back to where he was playing Wyatt Langford baseball. Not on this pitch. This pitch was a beauty, and it went a long way. What did you say, 425? 425. Now, he was short of Cag's 440 from the other night, but 425 and just a bomb. And it got Florida off to a good start in Game 3 of that series. I think that kind of set the tone. Although he did do a little hop skip there, they may suspend him. If that other umpire was in there, they probably would have thrown him out of the game. Jeez. That's still crazy. But anyway, all right, that's going to do it for our Meldon Law starting lineup. We'll take a break. We will come back. Blake Toppmeyer, the SEC columnist for USA Today, will join us. We'll have a lot of fun with him. Later on the show, Robbie Andreu will join us for Yes, No, Way, or Maybe. Got a jam-packed show. Make sure you are watching or listening here on another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from another Dooley Noted podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place like this?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. To Go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Albert, Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
As the oldest Gator booster club in the world, Gainesville Quarterback Club gives you access to elite speakers like coaches, NCAA football insiders, Gator greats, and more, including yours truly. Share your passion for Gator football with hundreds of other members at weekly in-season meetings, home game tailgates, and special events throughout the year. Join the Gainesville Quarterback Club today. Trial membership until April 11th only, featuring Billy Napier and Tommy Townsend. Email the club at membership@quarterbackclub.org. That's membership@quarterbackclub.org, or call me, and I'll let you get to the right people. Another Duly Noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Okay, welcome back to another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Great pleasure to bring on Blake Toppmeyer, who is the SEC columnist for USA Today. And we got a lot of things to talk to him about. Blake, how is life up in Knoxville?
Doing all right. Yeah, kind of looking forward to the upcoming season. I don't know about you, Pat, but spring football never really lights me ablaze with excitement. I think as these spring practices go by, we often don't get many answers to our questions. But the best part about spring ending is we're about 4 months away, a little less now, from the start of the season. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I got my golf tournament coming up next Saturday, and then I just want to shut everything down. I just for a little while, and then okay, now we start talking season all over, and just start talking about which I told Spurrier, I can't believe you didn't patent that because he's the one who invented talking season.
Right. Yeah. So true. And now we all use it as its second nature, right? As if we came up with the phrase. But
That's right.
yeah, I look at talking season. I think Spurrier used to say it kind of started at SEC Media Days. I think it actually starts a little bit sooner now with the SEC spring meetings down in Destin. Those have been pretty spicy the last few years. We get some answers to some questions. I think maybe we'll get some answers to the 8 or 9 game conference schedule debate for when Texas and Oklahoma join the conference. We might get those answers here in about a month's time. So yeah, we're about a month away from what I consider the start of talking season down at those spring meetings in Destin.
Well, the interesting thing, and again, you never know what you're hearing, whether it's true or not, is that it's still a battle between the guys who want 8 and the guys, or the programs that want 8 and the programs that want 9. Most of the programs that want 8 because they want to go to bowl games, and so that allows them to schedule softer. And I don't know if I've been told they're going to come out of this with an answer one way or another, and I don't know that everybody's going to like the answer.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think they wanted to get an answer last year at spring meetings. They decided to wait at that time. There wasn't really any huge rush then. Plus, they were waiting for the other shoe to drop on a couple of things. The biggest being, I think, the future of the college football playoff. I think if you were to stay at a 4-team playoff, there might have been even more push to stick with an 8-game conference schedule because it's worked for the conference in the past quite well, when meshed with that 4-team playoff. With the 12-team playoff, I think the idea was it might create a little more willingness to go to a 9th conference game because, as we know with the 14 playoff, it was all about just don't lose, right? Like if you lost a game or two, you decreased your chances of making the playoff. I think now with 12 teams, including 6 at-large bids, you have to think about strength of schedule like we do in other sports. It's not going to be as strict as if, you lose 2 games and you're out of the playoff. I think a 9-3 team from the SEC that endured a 9-game conference schedule looks mighty good for that 12-team playoff. But there's that other side of the coin. And I think part one of that you mentioned is there are some teams that are worried about what a 9th conference game would do to their quest to, finish at 7-5 and go to a bowl game. I also think, and this is more in quiet circles, I think there's kind of a quiet minority that are frustrated and concerned about who their 3 rivals are going to be. And if they don't like their 3 rivals that are going to be assigned for this 9-game conference schedule format, they might not get it on board with the idea at all. So I do think it is still pretty divided. I think we've all assumed for a while that 9 games would win out. But, from what I've been told, it is kind of hanging in the balance still.
Well, yeah, that would be my question, Blake, is if they stay at 8 and they just say they can't get to, because the vote's going to be announced as 14-0. But let's just say they can't get it and they have to stay with 8. Did they then stay with divisions? Because we've been told they're going to get rid of divisions as well.
I think divisions are gone regardless. I think there is enough uniform belief throughout the conference that this division deal where you can go 7 years, between seeing opponents in opposite divisions, that doesn't really work well for the conference. I think there's enough belief in that across the board that they would eliminate divisions. I think they would go with I guess they call it the 7-1 model, where you have a fixed rival, and then so you take yourself out of the equation, you take your 1 rival out of the equation, that leaves 14 teams, and you split those 14. You play 7 in 1 year, you play the other 7 in the following year, and that gets you to 8 conference games every year. Now, what I think is not often discussed about this model is that it's less fair in scheduling than what the 9-game conference model would be. Everybody gets hung up on who your 3 rivals are going to be in the nine game schedule. But you can provide more balance with 3 rivals than you can with 1. I mean, if you have 1 rival in an 8 game conference schedule, one team is going to get to play Vanderbilt every year. That team very likely would be Tennessee. I think Tennessee and Vanderbilt would be paired,
Right.
in an 8 game conference format. Another team, very likely to be Florida, would have to play Georgia every year, right? I mean, how is that fair? It's not. And at least if you have 3 rivals, you can kind of balance it out to where you're not playing 3 Alabamas, you're not playing 3 Georgias. One team's not playing Georgia while the other team's playing Vanderbilt every year. You can provide a little bit of balance, I think, across 3 rivals. And yet, that seems to be one of the things that people, I think some of these schools are getting hung up on is, well, hey, my rivals are tougher than my neighbors' rivals. Well, but still, it's more equitable across the board than just having 1 rival would be.
Yeah, I talked about this with somebody the other day. I said, everybody, well, Georgia's rivals aren't as hard as Florida. Well, you know who's not a rival of theirs? It's on their schedule. Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, LSU. They're all going to have to play. They're going to have to play them all. They aren't going to get away with never going to Texas A&M. That's not going to happen again.
That's right. And with each of these formats we're discussing here, as we said, you're going to play every team in a conference at a minimum of once every 2 years. You'll play a rival or rivals in a 9 game format every year, and you would play your non-rivals in both of these formats once every 2 years. So I think for the most part, it's all going to kind of come out in the wash. You just have to, and Greg Sankey's been saying this consistently. He said, look at this in the totality of the schedule. Don't look at this as, oh, we're playing a 3 game conference schedule, putting all the attention on who your rivals are. Look at it across the total sum of 9 conference games. And I think for the most part, if you compare your 9 game conference schedule against someone else in the league's 9 game conference schedule, they're going to be pretty equitable. You can provide a lot of balance in those schedules. Probably the worst part about the 9, I think, is that for most teams, in 1 year, you're going to be playing 5 conference road games, and the other year, you're going to be playing 4 conference road games. So that off year there where you have to play 5 conference road games, I think that's probably the worst part from where I sit on a 9 game conference schedule. Of course, teams like Florida and Georgia with the neutral site game, they're sort of the fly in the ointment to all that.
Oh, they ought to have, everybody should play a neutral site game.
There you go. Then 4 home, 4 road, and 1 neutral site. Yeah.
Hey, I want to talk to you a little bit about the draft because obviously the SEC dominated again. And it was like at one point you were going, can anybody but Ohio State and the SEC be drafted? Is it allowed? Because that's what it was like. I think the first 6 picks or something were all that way. But I would think it's a little bittersweet for Alabama fans to have the tied for the most draft picks and really didn't win anything. Didn't win the division, didn't win the conference, didn't win. I mean, you won a lot of games, but you didn't play for a national championship. It's got to be kind of weird for them.
I think that's so true, Pat. I think most years you can look at the NFL draft and the team who produced the most draft picks, oftentimes, especially recently, won the national championship. And the draft is a coronation of that team that just won the title. We saw it in 2019 with LSU. I believe they had 14 draft picks that year.
Yeah.
We saw it in 2020 with Alabama. They led the way in the draft. We saw it in 2021 with Georgia. They had 15 draft picks after winning the national championship with that 2021 team. This year, though, we had Alabama matching Georgia in total number of draft picks with 10 apiece. And actually, you could say it was a little bit Alabama leaning because 8 of Alabama's 10 were selected in the first 3 rounds. And of course, they had the number 1 overall pick in Bryce Young. And so I do think that makes it bittersweet. I mean, you celebrate the success of your players going on to the NFL. Yeah, and that's a great feather in your cap, and you use that in recruiting, the whole bit. But the question has to be then, if you had the number 1 overall pick at the sport's most important position, and you also had 10 guys that were NFL bound, why did the result not match the Alabama standard? And I think it was a number of things. Nick Saban built that dynasty on the back of playing disciplined football, and Alabama was not a disciplined football team
A
last year. It was one
lot
of
of
the most,
penalties, yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, one of the most penalized teams in the nation. They had a negative turnover differential. They lost their sizzle on special teams that they'd kind of become known for at the beginning of the Saban dynasty. So there were a lot of reasons why it didn't end up in being a playoff season for them. But I agree, it's bittersweet to see 10 guys selected to the draft and know that you lost to Tennessee for the first time since 2006, and also lost to a first-year coach and Brian Kelly at LSU.
Yeah, it's kind of bittersweet for Florida fans, too. We had the fourth player picked, and we really booed him. I mean, it's just such a weird dynamic for Gator fans because it's a local guy who was vilified and then would be celebrated. It was but he never had an average game his whole time at Florida. It was either way up here or way down there. And so now, do you become a Colts fan if you're a Gator fan? Because, Anthony Richardson's a good kid. I will vouch for his character all day. But obviously, it was a weird dynamic in the way he played.
Yeah, it was such a strange situation with him, too, because I think he set the bar really high for himself coming in relief of Emory Jones 2 years ago and had all the big play potential. And I think a lot of Florida fans at that time, even I was saying the same thing at that time of why is Dan Mullen not making the change here? Why is he not turning the keys over to Anthony Richardson? Yes, maybe he doesn't know every play in the playbook, but clearly I thought he was the quarterback with the most athleticism, the most upside, the most talent, and that didn't happen. And then the keys did get turned over to him last year with Billy Napier, and I think you started to see oh, maybe this is why he wasn't starting the year before. Now, I think for Billy Napier, it might have been beneficial if he was, right? Got a little more experience in there.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, I think we did see that he was an unpolished product, and neither of his coaches, neither Dan Mullen nor Billy Napier, who've both had success, as we know, working with quarterbacks in the past, neither one of them could put that polish on Anthony Richardson. And so now you do have to wonder, are the NFL guys going to be able to apply that? Because, anybody that's seen him play knows he has the measurables, know he has the abilities, but you can't complete 50% of your passes in the NFL. You can't have these games you were talking about, where they're just total busts of a game. Those type of guys don't last as NFL starting quarterbacks. So I think, we always put a lot of the attention on quarterbacks in the draft, but I do think Anthony Richardson and Will Levis are two of the more, intriguing picks from this draft because they have the abilities, but we never saw them put it all together in college. So it's kind of like, where does it go from here?
Yeah, it's so interesting with Richardson. I did want to talk to you about the SEC East, especially because I have this saying, I call it summer lovin', that you're going to get LSU summer lovin' all year this year. And we know everybody is going to start talking about the East and they go, it's over already. Georgia doesn't play anybody this year again, and they've recruited so well. Nobody even expects it to be competitive. Is there any way Tennessee can make it competitive again after Hendon Hooker's gone now, who I loved and I would have drafted way higher than he did get drafted. But is Tennessee good enough to give Georgia a battle?
I think they'll be good enough on one side of the ball. I don't know if you can beat Georgia just being good on one side of the ball. I think Tennessee's defense is going to remain a concern. We saw them that cost them in that game against South Carolina where they lost last year, which really cost them a spot in the college football playoff. Was that loss to South Carolina where Spencer Rattler absolutely shredded them in November. And I think, I don't know if Joe Milton is going to keep the train rolling to the extent that it was with Hendon Hooker. And you also have to factor in the departures of two NFL wide receivers now, and Jalen Hyatt, who was sensational last year, won the Biletnikoff award, and also Cedric Tillman, and a first-round offensive tackle in Darnell Wright. So I do think the offense is going to come back to earth a little bit, but it's still going to be really good. We've seen Josh Heupel everywhere he's been. I mean, dating back to when he was in this conference the first time around as Missouri's offensive coordinator. I was covering Missouri as a beat writer at the time, and the year before Heupel got there, I mean, that offense was non-existent. It was 3 and out. They'd get in these punt fests with teams. It's some of the worst games you ever seen. And then Heupel gets there in year 1, and all of a sudden their offense has a pulse. He did the same thing at UCF. He had good offenses there. He's a good quarterback developer. So I think the offense is going to be fine at Tennessee, even if it's not quite to the level it was last year. And I do still think they have weapons. I think Joe Milton is going to put it together a little bit more here this year. But defense, boy, I don't know that they've solved their problem on defense. I think the back end of that defense in particular is going to remain a wart, and I just don't know if you can beat Georgia that way. However, it is at Neyland, and we know Vols fans they'll want to return the favor to the environment Tennessee stepped into last year at Georgia. That was one of the loudest venues I've experienced, and I'll say, Georgia's always got a nice place to take in the game, maybe if you're not a rival team. But I think it's one of the great venues in college football. I've never thought it's like one of the 2 or 3 loudest venues in the conference. Well, last year for that Tennessee game, I was there. It was rocking. Neyland Stadium is going to be the same way this year. So maybe that's an X factor for Tennessee. I think that is the one potential stumbling block on Georgia's regular season schedule. Other than that, I don't see them losing before possibly Atlanta. I mean, it is kind of a cakewalk schedule really for them this year.
I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I said there's not I don't think anybody's on the hot seat in this conference, but they'll get on it. They'll find a way on it. And then I think it was your story that you had the 5 guys on the hot seat in the SEC, or what the most pressure is what you were saying. And, of course, number 1 is Jimbo Fisher. He's the only guy that even comes to mind. And I don't know. I mean, everybody says the $77 million buyout's too much, but we all know they've got their peeing money out there, so they don't care. I think he's in danger. You had Billy Napier listed as second, and there is a lot of pressure on him, but I don't think it's going to end well this year for him. And that's going to be an interesting dynamic as we go forward. We've got a new president. Nobody's really sure what his feelings are about football, but, I don't think he's in trouble, but if it got too bad, I guess there could be.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought, and you're right. It is careful wording there of facing the most pressure versus hot seat, because as far as hot seat, it is probably a shorter than usual list this year. But, I think we've seen in the SEC in recent years that you don't get 2 honeymoon seasons anymore. I mean, Brian Harsin never got 1 honeymoon season, really. I don't know that he got 1 honeymoon month.
No.
But he was fired on Halloween of his second season at Auburn, and you could say like, oh well, that's Auburn, right? Always one of the most pressure packed situations. Auburn boosters are never happy, right? Well, I mean, you think about Joe Moorhead. I mean Joe Moorhead at Mississippi State. He was fired after just 2 seasons at Mississippi State. Now there comes with caveats with that. They said he was a bad fit. And all those things. But we have seen now in recent years, it's not just Auburn. You throw Moorhead into the mix, and it is – I think the pressure starts to get real for coaches in their second season, particularly when you're coming off a scenario like Billy Napier where he had a losing season. Florida got embarrassed in its bowl game. They lost the quarterback recruit in Jaden Rashada, which I think could have turned down the heat a little bit if you could have at least sold the future. And he's recruiting well. And I do still think if given time there, I'm not out on the Billy Napier experience. I think he could work at Florida, but patience is in short supply around this conference. And you mentioned it with the new president at Florida. And I'm sure Billy Napier has Scott Strickland's support, of course, right? But Strickland hired and fired Dan Mullen, and it gets to a point where having your AD's support, you need more than that. You need momentum on the field and on the trail. I think he's got the momentum on the trail. How much does that hold up, though? In the face of let's say 4-8, 5-7 season. And I don't know about you, Pat, but I'm I'm really downcast when I look at Florida's quarterback competition.
Oh.
And, I think it's going to be behind the eight ball at that spot all year. And I think you're really swimming upstream in this conference if you don't got a guy at that spot. And I'm not convinced Florida does. And they have a tough schedule. You look at
it's tougher than last year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really tough schedule. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Florida misses a bowl game this year, and I think that would that'd crank up a lot of heat on Billy Napier at that point.
Well, you didn't hear the breaking news that Tom Brady is coming out of retirement to play for Florida. So they found a glitch in the he got an NIL deal or something, so they're able to get him to play. But yeah, great stuff, Blake. Always love talking to you about SEC. Miss seeing you at SEC Media Days, but you get to listen to Jimbo Fisher and try to see how much the women's who are typing in his quotes on the ASAP, their fingers start burning, and they all have to go drink afterwards. It's so bad.
Yeah. Never those transcribers been more valuable than when Jimbo gets to the stage. But yeah, absolutely good to talk to you, Pat. Always appreciate catching up.
All right, buddy. We'll see you later. Blake Toppmeyer, SEC columnist for USA Today Network, and we appreciate his time. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll be joined by Robbie Andreu, who will join us for Yes, No, Where, Maybe, and get to all our other stuff. After we take this break, you're listening or watching. You're listening to or watching at. No, you're listening or watching, whatever. You're listening or watching to another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from another Dooley Noted podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place like this?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. To Go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Albert, Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
As the oldest Gator booster club in the world, Gainesville Quarterback Club gives you access to elite speakers like coaches, NCAA football insiders, Gator greats, and more, including yours truly. Share your passion for Gator football with hundreds of other members at weekly in-season meetings, home game tailgates, and special events throughout the year. Join the Gainesville Quarterback Club today. Trial membership until April 11th only, featuring Billy Napier and Tommy Townsend. Email the club at membership@quarterbackclub.org. That's membership@quarterbackclub.org, or call me, and I'll let you get to the right people.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Okay, but welcome back to another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. We go back to our Big Mills Cheesesteaks Zoom line to bring in the great Robbie Andreu for his usual Monday appearance. Robbie, how are you?
Good, Pat. How was your weekend?
It was good. It was very busy. I did a lot. I actually played in a tournament, and then I played 7 holes with Kelsey on Sunday.
Oh, good.
So
How you hitting them?
I hit him okay. I hit him really good Saturday. Sunday I had that little John Rahm power fade working.
Yeah.
But when it doesn't work, when you hit it too far, you hit it too
Cut
hard.
it too bad. Yeah.
Right into the lumberyard. And
Yeah, that'll get you in trouble.
I just found out Friday that you're playing in the Bob Dooley Invitational, which
I found out Friday I was too.
yeah. So that's going to be interesting because I know you haven't played a lot of golf lately.
I've played once in the last 2 years, and I was in your tournament 2 years ago.
See, my tournament brings out the great ones. That's the key.
Yeah.
But I heard a rumor that you got your clubs out of the shed and that there was a vine growing in them.
There was a vine growing around the bag, and the clubs were literally covered in dust.
Oh, woof. All right, well, we got to go out and hit some balls this week.
Yeah.
We'll find a way to do that.
We'll definitely do it. Yeah.
All right, Yes, No, Where, Maybe is brought to you by Big Mills Cheesesteak, street dining done the right way. Sponsors of the Bob Dooley as well. They'll be serving up sausage dogs on the first hole. Oh, I can't wait for that. Let's go to number 1 on Yes, No Way, or Maybe. Robbie, number 1, Anthony Richardson wins Rookie of the Year next year, or this year.
Maybe, Pat. I mean, I think that the Colts is a good fit for him with the head coach that knows how to develop quarterbacks. Yep. And I think they're going to want him to play right away. So I think he's going to have a chance to do something here as a rookie. I think he might end up being a starting quarterback. And if that's the case, then yeah, maybe he is Rookie of the Year. I think I feel good about his chances now just with where he went and the team he went to.
Yeah, this is a guy.
Seems like a perfect fit for him.
This is a guy that basically developed Jalen Hurts. Same kind of athlete, and we'll see how it works out. I think maybe is the right answer there because, I mean, I wouldn't say no way.
No, I would never say
definitely
no way.
wouldn't say yes.
Yeah.
So
the guy has too much talent to say no way, though, Pat. And I mean, and I think that the Colts, I think they really love their pick, and I think they're going to bring him along at a good pace. And he's a smart guy. He'll pick things up quick, I think.
Number 2 on Yes, No Way, or Maybe. Robbie, Billy Napier is on the hot seat. The reason I asked this question is because I, again, was on a radio show, and this has happened 3 or 4 times, and somebody said, is he on the hot seat? I get asked that question all the time, so I'm asking it of you. Is Billy Napier on the hot seat?
No effing way, Pat, okay? He's been here a little over a year. He's done a good job recruiting. He's established, what he wants as far as the atmosphere and the culture. And you got to give the guy a chance. And I think some of the national media boys and girls are ready to throw him under the bus, but I don't think anybody over at UF is. And the thing is, all you hear now are the negative fans. Don't hear the ones that are encouraged by the things he's doing positive. And, I think the national media has this perception that Florida's just going to be awful this year. And I think that's not going to be the case. And I think Napier's going to be fine. And I think he's going to have a chance to build the program he thinks this place can be.
The interesting thing about Billy is if you ever talk to him or you ever hear him speak, and he talks to you about what the plan is and what they're doing, you walk away and you go, this is going to work. This is going to work. I'm convinced. And then you watch the spring game and you go, maybe it's not. Or you watch the Kentucky game after they beat Utah. It's like he's had a hard time keeping the momentum going in the right direction.
Yeah. But like we talked last week, Pat, last year was like season 0 for him.
Yeah.
This is pretty much like his first year when you look at all the turnover on the roster and everything that's been going on. So, to me, this is kind of like his first year. And I think people are going to be maybe pleasantly surprised with the product he puts on the field.
Yeah, we'll see. If he's got to get a quarterback, though, that's somebody.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, Robbie, I was thinking about this. In fact, I meant to ask Blake about this earlier. But with this new rule about the clock doesn't stop on first downs except the last 2 minutes. Florida, it may play into Florida's hands in that I think they want to be a running team that controls the clock already, and now you take maybe 12 or 13 plays out of the game. Makes the game go by faster.
I agree, Pat. I think that the way Billy Napier wants to do this is to control the ball, shorten the game, and have a good defense. And I think if you looked at the spring game, that was the one real encouraging thing. The way the defense not just played, but the way they attacked. I like the way they were real aggressive. They didn't seem to play that way last year, and I think that's encouraging. And the guys I got in the portal are going to help them. So I think the team Napier wants is the one you described, Pat, that wants to shorten the game, run the ball, play good defense, and find a way to win in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, when you get some of these other guys in here like Lagway and guys like that, maybe it'll be a totally different offense. What you've got to do is build your team around who your quarterback is. That's just the way it is.
You've got now this year they're going to have to take care of the ball. That's the bottom line.
Yep. All right, and number 3, you are thrilled that you are in the AL Central, where your 17-12 Minnesota Twins are 3.5 games up on second place. Everybody else in your division's under 500.
So am I happy to be there, Pat?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes, of course. I mean, the Twins are just okay. They're not great. They're not going to win the World Series or anything, but now they're in a division they definitely have a chance to compete in, and that's all you ask for when the year starts, give your team a chance to compete. So I'm happy about them.
Yeah, I just like to play a game. I think every Braves game has been rained out lately. So,
but here's the big thing for me, Pat. The Twins never beat the Yankees. They've won the season series already for the year.
Already?
So that's big news for me.
I want to wear your Twins hat then, because you know how I feel about the Yankees.
Yeah,
all right.
You hate them like I did.
Yeah, we'll let you go tomorrow, Tuesday, for those of you around town.
I'll see you on the radio.
Yeah, we'll be on the radio. He'll be subbing in for Jeff, and we look forward to that. We'll see you then, Robbie.
Hey, Pat, see you.
All right, that's Robbie Andreu on the Big Mills Cheesesteak. Yes, no way, or maybe. Always have fun doing that. Let's get to the Ben Eige Odell Realty Games of the Week. And we got a lot of games. I've condensed it down here a little bit. And the one that everybody's going to be talking about for literally starting today, going into tomorrow, and then continue, Lakers versus Golden State, Bron versus Steph. I mean, it is – I know that the TV people are just thrilled about this. They couldn't ask for anything better. Tuesday's game is at 10 o'clock. I'm going to have to find out about it the next morning, I think. 10 o'clock, I'll probably get over about 12:30. But I may stay up. The thing is, all I want to watch is fourth quarter. So, but anyway, it's so Tuesday's game's at 10 on TNT. Thursday's game's at 9 on ESPN, an hour earlier. So that's good. Softball and baseball both playing FSU this week. Baseball is in Jacksonville to play FSU at 6 o'clock on Tuesday. This was the game that got pushed back by a rain from about a month ago. And of course, Florida has owned FSU, but every game's its own game, as I always like to say. That's at 6 o'clock, and it's the last non-conference game until they get to regionals that they'll play. Softball is also playing FSU at home. And of course, softball lost to them, I think it was 5-2 earlier. But they're playing them at home on Wednesday. That's at 6 o'clock as well. I don't know. I think it might be on the U. I'm trying to find where the baseball game is. It looks like it may not be anywhere. But the softball game's on the U. It's not anywhere, but I'll still be able to find it. And then tonight, we have another Game 7. If you're listening to this on Tuesday, you already know who won. New Jersey and the Rangers. I am kind of a closet Rangers fan. 8 o'clock on ESPN. So a lot of stuff to watch, which is why I love sports, because there's always something. The thing is, it's not scripted, though. Let's get to our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. Some of you did really well with the last one. This one's going to be very simple. It's a yes or no question. Caglione breaks the record Tuesday night. Or not breaks it, ties it, I'm sorry. He ties it. He gets to 26 homers. He's at 25 now. The record held by Langford and by Laporta. So does he tie the record on Tuesday night? Yes? Yay or nay, in fact. I prefer yay or nay to yes or no. Let us get to our Hesser and Kipke 3 things, which we always love doing. We appreciate Hesser and Kipke. In fact, I was able to work it out, so they're going to play in the tournament. I'm excited about that. I'm glad they were, because they kind of got in late, but we found room for them. Some people got kicked out. It's okay. Of course, Hesser and Kipke is a Gainesville law firm specializing in the areas of workers' compensation and family law. Ken and Jennifer take great pride in their one-to-one focus on each and every client they represent. Ken is board certified in workers' compensation law by the Florida Bar, while Jennifer possesses extensive jury trial experience with a nearly 20-year background as a prosecutor. Don't believe me? Well, check it out. There are more than 55 five-star reviews. Or better yet, give them a call at 352-339-9920, Hesser and Kipke. 3 things. Number 1, team that was the best team maybe in the history of sports, the Bruins, they're done. Didn't make it through the first round. That's the thing. And I heard Dan Patrick. I always like to give credit to people when they have good lines, but he said, boy, I hope nobody asks them about, was this season a failure? After the way Giannis went off on that, which I love Giannis's answer. It's a great answer. But it is a failure. When you have the most points in the history of hockey and you go out in the first round and you had a 3-1 lead. Again, Miami is becoming the new Tampa, because the Panthers are in, still alive. We didn't think they would be. The Heat are one game up in the second round. We didn't even think they'd be around for the second round. They're becoming the new Tampa. That's number 1. Number 2, I did want to mention softball. Softball has a chance to have the first losing record in Tim Walton's life. Now, he may have at Little League. He may have at some point as a player. I don't know. Minor leagues maybe. But never as a college softball coach, but he never did at Wichita State, and he never has at Florida. He had one season that was 11-11. He's got 4 really tough games coming up here. FSU, obviously, and then Kentucky for 3, at Kentucky. And then the SEC tournament in Fayetteville. And there's a chance it could happen. It's just been that kind of year. They're 10-11 now. They did get 2 out of 3 from Ole Miss, but you kind of need to sweep them. But we'll see what happens going forward. You're allowed 1. You know what I mean? You're allowed 1 when you've had the unbelievable track record of Tim Walton, and the class he's got coming in next year is going to change everything. Number 3 on the Hesser and Kipke 3 things. I think it could be a Dooley problem, because I mentioned this earlier, how since I retired, Florida football's gone on the toilet, basketball hadn't been anything. And then I said, but I went to one football game last year, and that was Kentucky. What happened? Not good. Did not go well. Well, guess what Kelsey did? Kelsey went to 2 straight Lightning playoff games. Had a great time with her friends. What happened? Lost in both of them. Both of them in overtime, and they're out. Maybe we're jinxes. I hate to admit it, but maybe we are. I hope not. Now, Kelsey says I'm just a jinx because I watched the Lightning. I never watched Lightning hockey. I'm not a big hockey guy. But I watched both games, and maybe I'm just the jinx. Doesn't have anything to do with Kelsey. That's her story, and she's sticking to it. That is our Hesser and Kipke 3 things. Let's get to our Adams Ribco to go. Gator of the weekend. And to me, it was pretty easy when I made it Brandon Neely. The job he did, don't forget, he was out 13 days because he got suspended, and they didn't need him here, for their game on Tuesday night, and he didn't pitch the first game. In this game, they didn't need him. Run ruled Missouri. So now he had to pitch. He should have been arrested, that's for sure, but did a great job of getting a 2 1/3 inning save on Saturday, and then came in a tough situation on Sunday and got through them. and help Florida win these games and get that sweep. So Brandon Neely, 13 days off and then gets 2 saves. Good job for him. He's going to be huge going forward with this team. He is our Adams Ribco to go Gator of the week. Had some Adams this weekend. All right, it is time for our Eastlake Pediatrics Pat Dooley story time. And this one was Judd and Judd has a great Steve story about golf. And there are so many great Steve Spurrier stories about golf. In fact, Chris Harry and I were talking about one. Chris Harry didn't have a ball mark one time, and he stuck a tee in the ground to mark his ball. And Spurrier goes, what are you, checking the greens? Trying to see what the greens are like? Is that what you're doing there? And so he just let me tell you what, it is so much fun to play with him, but it is, you better have a thick skin. Got to be ready for it. Well, I'll never forget the first time I beat him. We were playing at UF. I played really good. I chipped in for birdie on a hole and beat him, by 3 or 4 strokes. I think it's the only time I played 18 and beat him because that's how good he was back then. Now, I beat him a month ago, but we only played 9. But anyway, the point being, I reveled in that. I think we bet $20, maybe $10. That was it. But just taking that crisp bill from him, I was so happy. I finally did it. I was calling people. I was so happy. So a couple days later, I get a call. Pat Dooley, coach here. Says, that's kind of your home course, isn't it? I said, I play there a lot, but he goes, let's go play at the country club. Well, he's better at the country club. Even though this is a guy who, when he got to the University of Florida on his recruiting trip, played golf at UF. It was then the country club, but it was the same course. And that helped convince him to come. But it's my home course. Sorry, no, it's not. Anyway, the point is, he goes, let's go out to the country club's harder. And he kicked my butt. And that was it. That was it. He had to get it back, had to get that revenge. That is the competitor he is, and that's why one of the greatest coaches of all time. But I love playing. Every time I play with him, it's a blast. And we'll talk to him maybe. We won't bring that story up Monday. I do have another couple of good. I got about 9 good Steve Spurrier golf stories, and I'll get to all of them. We appreciate Mike Jordan, who is also a sponsor of the Bob Dooley Invitational. We appreciate him. He's bringing up a group from South Florida. Not South Florida, but Southern Florida, southern of us, to play in the tournament. We look forward to it. All right, that's going to do it. Appreciate Zach, who sat in the pilot seat today. And I know he's excited about that. And we didn't crash the plane. This is an airplane. So we didn't have an automatic pilot. But that's going to do it for the show. We appreciate everybody. Appreciate Blake Toppmeyer. Appreciate Robbie for coming on. We'll be back Friday. Until then, I'm Pat Dooley saying I'm deep, I'm way back, and I am out of here.